if you're weirded out by cognition in plants, you're not ready for exobiology, right? If something that's that similar here on Earth is already like freaking you out, then I think there's going to be all kinds of cognitive life out there that we're going to have a really hard time recognizing.
I think robots will help us,
Yeah,
like expand our mind about cognition. Either that or the word like Xenobots. So, and they maybe becomes the same thing. Is really when the human engineers the thing, at least in part, and then is able to achieve some kind of cognition that's different than what you're used to, then you start to understand like, oh, every living organism is capable of cognition. Oh, I need to kind of broaden my understanding of what cognition is. But do you think plants, like when you eat them, are they screaming?
I don't know about screaming. I think you have to.
That's what I think when I eat a salad.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think you have to scale down the expectations in terms of, right. So probably they're not screaming in the way that we would be screaming. However, there's plenty of data on plants being able to do anticipation and certain kinds of memory and so on. I think what you just said about robots. I hope you're right, and I hope that's. But there's two ways that people can take that, right? So one way is exactly what you just said, to try to kind of expand their notions for that category. The other way people often go is they just sort of define the term as if it's not a natural product, it's just faking, right? It's not really intelligence if it was made by somebody else, because it's the same thing. They can see how it's done, and once you see how it's like a magic trick. When you see how it's done, it's not as fun anymore. And I think people have a real tendency for that, and they sort of, which I find really strange, in the sense that if somebody said to me, we have this sort of blind like a hill climbing search, and then we have a really smart team of engineers. Which one do you think is going to produce a system that has good intelligence? I think it's really weird to say that it only comes from the blind search, right? It can't be done by people who, by the way, can also use evolutionary techniques if they want to, but also rational design. I think it's really weird to say that real intelligence only comes from natural evolution. So I hope you're right. I hope people take it in the other way.
Well, there's a nice shortcut. So I work with legged robots a lot now for my own personal pleasure. Not in that way, internet. So the 4 legs. And one of the things that changes my experience of the robots a lot is when I can't understand why I did a certain thing. And there's a lot of ways to engineer that. Me, the person that created the software that runs it, there's a lot of ways for me to build that software in such a way that I don't exactly know why it did a certain basic decision. Of course, as an engineer, you can go in and start to look at logs. You can log all kind of data, sensory data, the decisions you made, all the outputs in neural networks and so on. But I also try to really experience that surprise, and that really experience as another person would that totally doesn't know how it's built. Mm-hmm. And I think the magic is there in not knowing how it works. That I think biology does that for you through the layers of abstraction.
Yeah.
Because nobody really knows what's going on inside the biological. Like each one component is clueless about the big picture.
I think there's actually really cheap systems that can illustrate that kind of thing, which is even like fractals, right? Like you have a very small, short formula in Z, and you see it, and there's no magic. You're just going to crank through, Z squared plus C, whatever. You're just going to crank through it. But the result of it is this incredibly rich, beautiful image, right? That just like, wow, all of that was in this like 10 character long string, like amazing. So the fact that you can know everything there is to know about the details and the process and all the parts and everything, like there's literally no magic of any kind there, and yet the outcome is something that you would never have expected, and it just is incredibly rich and complex and beautiful.